My entire school just got emailed a suicide note. Right now I'm studying for a test I have tomorrow morning, and as I was studying I got a notification from my school email about a new message in my inbox. I opened it up to find that it was not only from an unknown email that wasn't even attached to the school, but also that it was sent to the entire school. All of the students, faculty, administrators, even the parents were sent this message. This alone creeped me out, which only made me more interested in what was typed. So I started reading. This is what it said. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For the longest time I've been lying to you all. I've been putting on a mask every day to school, pretending to be someone else, someone better than who I truly am. In truth, I am a nobody. I have no identity, I have no name, I have no family, I have nothing. I only have this email to leave behind to everyone. I can't sleep at night anymore. It's been keeping me up night after night, fantasizing about this moment, thinking, dreaming, hoping for a day like this to come. And alas, I've been blessed with a reason, a glorious reason to leave this place and never return. I've been telling myself that this moment is the only thing I have to look forward to in my damp, empty, miserable life. I've been suffering in silence for so long, waiting and praying that this fantasy in my mind would come true, and now it has, and I wanted to apologize to you all for it. I want to apologize for any of the stress and anger I have caused everyone around me, although I won't be here to receive your acceptance or denials for these apologies. To my friends, I am sorry. I am sorry for always coming to you when I was at my lowest points. I inconvenienced you and I pushed all my worries onto you when you should have pushed all of yours onto me. At least now you won't be bothered by my presence again. To my teachers, I am sorry. I am sorry for my erratic behavior in class. I can't help it. It swallowed up my true self, dragged it down into the deepest parts of my mind, so much that now I'm an empty, irritable shell of a person, if that's what you'd call me. I hope now you will be at peace, not having to deal with the stupidity and arrogance I've displayed in your classes. I hope they'll be so much better without me. To my parents, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a failure. I'm sorry for not living up to your expectations, not like there were any for me. You brought me into this world, a failure, and now I will leave this world, still a failure. I truly wish the best for you, and the worst for me. I love you. Now I apologize to all of you reading this. I'm sorry for wasting your valuable time. I have no time left, so I'll end my long rambling here. I wish I could see all the smiles you all are getting by reading this. I wish I could see the party you'll all throw once I'm dead, dancing to the chant, "He's dead! Hallelujah!" just like how I imagined it. You all must be so glad to see me write my last words. I know I am. Once again, I'm deeply sorry for my existence and for being a piece of waste to humanity. I wish I could have done more, however. My life was over once it started. Thank you, and I'm sorry. Sincerely, Jason Everfield. I'm so confused. Why did it have a my name on it? I never wrote anything like that. I've been spending the last hour studying for a test. I didn't write that. I don't know if this is just a prank or some kind of sick joke. Should I be scared? Should I run? Should I blow it off? I don't know what to do. Hold on, someone's banging on my window. My college has frequent lockdowns. This time, they're not letting us out. Brynhorn College is a very small country college plopped down quite literally in the middle of nowhere. With a student body that barely exceeds 500, it's basically a speck of dust among the miles of forest surrounding it. Many of my high school friends would have balked at the notion of attending a college that's 5 miles away from the closest town. But for my quiet, country-loving demeanor, it's perfect. So when I got my acceptance letter to Brynhorn College in April, I was ecstatic. The rush of packing, course selection, finding a roommate, and obtaining financial aid was stressful, as one would expect. But as soon as I set foot on campus, all of my stress melted away. I don't know what it is about this place, but everyone just seems happier here. The way people talk, the little skip in everyone's steps as they walk, the professors are all passionate. Even the food here tastes happier. Unless you come to Brynhorn College, it's hard to explain. But one thing's for certain, I had found my perfect match. As with all small colleges, however, Brynhorn College has little quirks that are also hard to explain. The main one is what we call periodic lockdown. Periodic lockdown is the kind of thing that seems ridiculous when you really think of it, but everyone is almost too afraid to joke about it because of how serious it's treated. I'd first heard about it during orientation. Until then, our orientation leaders had been all sunshine and rainbows, but a dark cloud came over their faces when periodic lockdown came up. If you can only remember one thing from orientation, Remember this, whenever a periodic lockdown occurs, it must be taken seriously and must be adhered to, said Sam, one of my orientation leaders. Her liveliness that had been there mere seconds ago was gone. What's periodic lockdown? One of my orientation group mates asked. It's a period of time, usually around an hour or two, when everyone must stay inside their dorm rooms, with the doors locked and lights turned off. Any violation of this rule will be met with instant expulsion. Myself and the other members of my group were taken aback. Part of me wondered if it was an elaborate prank to scare the freshmen. We moved on quickly from the topic, and it wasn't brought up again. But on the 1st of October, a few weeks after school started, my phone buzzed during chemistry. Brynhorn emergency notifications, a periodic lockdown on S scheduled on October 2 ND. You must be in your rooms at least 30 minutes before the lockdown begins. For additional preparations, please visit the school website. Other students and even the professor checked their phones upon receiving the notification. First one of the school year, the professor said, before carrying on with the lecture. The freshman dorm was abuzz with nervousness, excitement, and fear about the lockdown. Our RA assured everyone of the lockdown's normalcy, but that didn't stop the rumors and theories from making their way into every conversation. I bet it's a gas leak, my roommate Theo suggested. They've been doing construction by the energy services building for the past couple weeks. They must have a lot of gas leaks then, if it's as normal as the upperclassmen say it is. The next day rolled around. I just stayed in my room the entire morning since my only class had been canceled in anticipation of the periodic lockdown. Following the school website, Theo and I did all the necessary procedures. We took out the trash, closed the blinds, locked the front door, filled our room's sink with water as an emergency water supply, and turned off all non-essential electric appliances. As it got closer and closer to 2, the hall grew quieter as people ended their conversations and doors slammed shut. As ridiculous as the whole endeavor was, no one wanted to risk being the one caught outside. Right as the clock struck 2, there was a faint, almost hollow-sounding whoosh sound that reverberated through the hall, like a spaceship powering down. It was completely dark. I checked my phone and noticed that I had neither Wi-Fi nor cellular data anymore. What the hell? They must have shut down everything, Theo complained. The show he'd been watching on Netflix was now stuck loading. Even the cell towers aren't working. It must be a regional blackout or something, I said. I turned on my phone flashlight and carried on with the assignment I'd been chipping away at. But that was the only weird thing that happened during the hour. As soon as it hit 3, everything turned back on, and school resumed as though nothing had happened. Periodic lockdowns are always a bit unsettling when they happen, but I've come to accept them as just one of those weird things that colleges sometimes do. They aren't often, maybe once or twice a month at most, and never longer than a couple hours. Occasionally a class or test is missed as a result of a lockdown, but professors were always prepared with online lecture videos and makeup testing dates. My first year of college passed by rather uneventfully, and it seemed as though the second year would be the same. Yesterday I was eating lunch with my friends when all of our phones buzzed simultaneously. I reached into my pocket to check the notification. Brynhorn emergency notifications. A periodic lockdown IS scheduled on November 15th starting at T1 p.m. CST. You must be in your rooms at least 30 minutes before the lockdown begins. For additional preparations, please visit the school website. What the fuck? That's like 40 minutes from now, my friend Natalie said, looking at her phone. There isn't an end time either. Did they make a mistake with the notification system? I asked. Screw it, I'm not taking any risks, another friend Evelyn said, putting on her backpack and picking up her tray table. I walked here, and my dorm is far as fuck, so I'm gonna leave. See y'all later. The dining hall around us gradually evolved into a cacophony of people gathering their belongings and putting away their food, most of which was half-eaten. I reluctantly followed suit, still processing how weird the whole situation was. Getting back to the dorms before the 30-minute mark was out of the question by this point, so why weren't we warned sooner? I was back at the dorms with 25 minutes to spare. The halls were shuddering with the sounds of doors slamming shut, people yelling, and locks clicking into place. I entered my room and began to go through the motions that had been ingrained in my head by that point. Close the blinds, unplug my computer, the fridge, lock the door. Just then my phone buzzed again. I checked it and saw a message from my roommate Theo. Hey Brian, I got in a bike crash on my way back and the chain broke, so I might be a few minutes late. Could you leave the door unlocked so I can get in easily? Thanks. A small pit of dread grew in my stomach. What if he doesn't make it in time? I wondered. Could he be expelled? Okay, but please hurry up if you can. There's like 15 minutes until the lockdown begins, I texted back. A minute later, Theo texted me again. It's all good, man. There's no way they'd punish someone after springing it up on us like that, LOL. I tried to distract myself from the gnawing pit in my stomach by studying for my chemistry quiz, which I didn't even know would happen or not. The hallway gradually got quieter, and I began to convince myself that everything would be okay. My phone buzzed again. My card isn't working for some reason. Could you come open the front door for me? The next thing I knew, it was pitch black, and a hollow whoosh echoed throughout the dorm. Periodic lockdown had begun, and my roommate was still outside. Fuck, I muttered. They must have turned off the front door's card reader as part of the lockdown. What happens to Theo now? Does he just have to wait outside until the lockdown ends? I thought about leaving my room to go open the door for him. Maybe no one will notice us if he gets inside fast enough. But what if we're both caught? Why risk getting myself into trouble when I'm safe right now? Not to mention, who knows what the periodic lockdown is for? Maybe there's some kind of animal outside that could be dangerous. But then isn't Theo in danger? What if whatever's out there gets him? My head swam. I turned my phone back on and tapped my browser app, which was thankfully already open to the periodic lockdown information website. I scrolled through the frequently asked questions section and found what I was looking for. Question: what should I do if someone else is out of their room during periodic lockdown? Answer: remain in your room no matter what, and keep the door locked. If someone knocks, don't answer the door. Don't let them in.
My eyes fixated on the last few words.
Don't let them in. That's when the feeling in my stomach went from gnawing to nauseating. My roommate didn't make it back in time, and now I'm supposed to make sure he doesn't make it back at all. And I don't even know when this will all be over. I played some games on my computer, occasionally checking the clock. 1 hour passed, then 2. A small part of me hoped the lockdown would end by the usual time, but I should have known by now that this was an unusual lockdown. With the remaining time uncertain, I turned off my computer to save battery and sat in the darkness, thoughts consuming my brain. Even the faint slivers of light that crept from the blinds were waning. I didn't dare open them. I checked my phone. 5:16. The previous longest lockdown was less than half this time. I drank the rest of my water and went to refill it at the sink, feeling my way through the pitch-black room. Then ice shot down my veins as I remembered the last step of lockdown preparation, something I had forgotten about in my haste: the sink. Praying for a miracle, I turned on the faucet. Nothing came out. Panic started to fill me. Shit, this must be why they had us fill the sink. Okay, no water. Fuck, how long can a human survive without water again? Is there any water left in the pipes? I tried to get the water running multiple times to no avail. There's no way they'd keep us in lockdown long enough for us to die from thirst, right? Time marched on. Soon it was late afternoon, then evening, then night. Not that I could tell from the window anyway. It had gotten completely dark before 5. Whatever was happening defied the normal day-night cycle. At around 7, I ate one of my frozen meals from the fridge for dinner. In the absence of a working microwave, I had to leave it out on my desk for a while to thaw. Nothing like slightly below room temperature Thai noodle soup to hit the spot. I went to bed a few hours later, figuring I might as well try to skip as much time as I could, hoping I'd be woken by the lights coming back on. Instead, I woke up to knocking on the door. "Brian, can you let me in?" My blood froze. It was still completely dark, but something felt off, like the air was a bit stuffier than normal. That was Theo's voice, I thought. There were more knocks. "Brian, my card isn't working. Can you please let me in?" Adrenaline shot through me, removing any lingering fatigue. I tapped my phone screen. 3:06. Fuck, I've been in lockdown for over 14 hours. I was jolted back by more pounding. "Brian, can you let me in?" Mind racing, I turned on my phone flashlight and scanned the room to see if anything was different. The light, while initially blinding, was a welcome reprieve from the previous 12 hours of darkness. There wasn't anything unusual in the room, but that didn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I slid off my bed and began making my way to the door. I didn't have a plan for what to do. I only knew that I was fucking terrified. The voice came again, louder now that I was closer. "Brian, my card isn't working. Can you please let me in?" I pressed an eye against the peephole. It was too dark to see anything, but for some reason I got the feeling that something was staring directly back at me. My hand wandered to the doorknob before I remembered the website. Don't let them in. I stood there for a minute, my mind racing. Is it really Theo that's standing outside, or something pretending to be him? "What happened to your bike yesterday?" I asked, my voice hoarse with neglect and dehydration. Silence. Part of me wondered if Theo or whoever was at the door had left, but that was quickly quelled. "Brian, can you let me in?" More pounding. The door seemed to shake more than before, the doorknob vibrating ominously in my hand. "What happened to your bike yesterday, Theo?" I asked again, louder. "Can you hear me?" More silence. Clearly, whoever was on the other end couldn't hear me for some reason or just wasn't responding. Shook by the whole situation, I felt my way back to my bed and tried to rest. Getting more sleep was hopeless by that point. Theo was relentless, knocking at the door every couple minutes or so. Sometimes I'd get a 10-minute break, other times there would be non-stop pounding for a minute straight or longer. But every single time the thing switched between the same two sentences, with the exact same intonation and inflection, almost like a recording played on loop. "Brian, can you let me in? And Brian, my card isn't working. Can you please let me in?" Became etched into my brain. For all I knew, the school was stuck in hell, and I was being tormented by a demon who thought it would be funny to imitate my less fortunate roommate. I began to cry. Less than 24 hours ago, I was a normal college student, stressed out by normal college things like friendship drama and chemistry tests. Now I was stuck in the dark with no water, no roommate, and no hope of escaping anytime soon. I began to think of my family, wondering if they knew what was happening. Maybe the FBI will start investigating and rescue us all. "Brian, I've been stuck outside all night. Please open the door." I froze again. The looping of the other sentences had blended into the background such that this new one stuck out. What does that mean, I wondered. I'm fucking starving and thirsty and I'm all alone out here, Brian. Please let me in. The desperation in the voice put me on edge more than anything that had come before. I checked my phone again. 7:15 a.m. The room suddenly exploded with a flurry of knocks, so much that I could hear the door groaning from stress. "Brian, please!" "They're going to GET me if you don't open the door right now." "Theo, what the fuck is happening?" I shouted from my bed. Silence again. My ears strained to listen. Then came Theo's voice again. Quieter now, but still clear. "Dude, I wish I knew. I got stuck outside, then I somehow got in, but none of the doors are working anymore. Brian, I was literally in the hallway all night. It's so fucking dark out here, and I think there's something out here with me." "What's out there, Theo? Are you okay?" I slid off my bed again to head to the door. "I don't fucking know, but I'm fucking scared," Theo shouted. Then came muffled, almost inaudible sobbing sounds. I just want this to be over. I just want to be..." "Theo, I'm coming," I said, my heart wrenching, my cheeks still wet with tears. But fear lingered in me. "I'll open the door, Theo, promise. You just need to answer one question, all right?" Theo sniffled. "Okay, what's the question? What happened to your bike yesterday?" Silence again, and more of it this time. I stood by the door, heart beating out of my chest as the minutes ticked by. 5 minutes, then 10. This is the longest it's been quiet so far, I thought. Why is Theo taking so long to respond? Then, just as I was about to retreat to bed, "Can you please just open the door, Brian?" "Answer the question, Theo," I said, my voice shaking. "Please let me in." Theo's voice sounded almost robotic now. I began to back away. "You're not Theo. You can't remember what happened to him." I was on the verge of tears again. There was pounding on the door. "Please, Brian, please, I can't stay out here." I went back to my bed and stuck my head under the pillow, hoping to drown out the sounds. There was more pounding, and even through the pillow I could hear the muffled "Please, Brian, please," on repeat. That's not Theo, it can't be, he'd remember, right? But then my mind wandered back to the pain and desperation in his voice. It felt so real. Clearly whatever was imitating him knew how to act. I must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing I knew it was quiet and noon. Time clearly worked differently now, however, because my window was still completely dark. This was the time that I truly began to fear for my life. Lockdown had now been going on for a full day, and there was no sign of it stopping anytime soon. I'll be dead in 2 days if I don't find something to drink. I tried to think of ideas, a slight headache starting to set in from dehydration. I felt my way around the room, not daring to use my phone flashlight anymore. I reached under Theo's bed and felt something smooth and metallic. I nearly cried from joy when I realized what I had found, a full soda can. I felt around more and counted 2, 3, 4 cans of Pepsi Max soda. Thank God for Theo's sugar addiction, I said to myself. The soda might be enough to get me through an extra day or two, but beyond that I know I will have to think of something to get myself out of here. And so I'm doing the only thing I could think of. I'm turning to the internet. Even though there is no Wi-Fi or cell service, I hope that somehow, some way, my story will get out and I will be rescued. And if you're reading this, that means it did. But there's one more thing before I'm all caught up. While I was writing this story, Theo came back again. I was hunched at my desk, typing away, my computer brightness turned to a minimum to save energy, when there was a knock. "Brian?" came Theo's voice. Ice shot through my veins. I shouldn't say anything. He's going to try to manipulate me to open the door. I tried to focus on typing but found it hard to do so. More knocking. Brian, please, I know you're scared. I'm sorry if I scared you, all right? I didn't move or speak. My vision blurred from adrenaline. Listen, Brian, I don't know what's happening. It's like my memory got wiped or I don't know. But I really don't want to stay out here, please. More silence. I typed a few more words but found that I couldn't think of more. There's something out here. I don't know where it is right now. But I hear it going from room to room sometimes, knocking on the door. It pretends to be other people, like me. I've heard it talk with my voice, my ears perked. Could that really be Theo? Could he be different from what was at the door earlier? I found a pack of water bottles, thankfully. It should be enough for a few days. Please, Brian, I don't want to hide from that thing anymore. What happened to your bike yesterday? I asked again. Brian, I told you something happened to my memory. It's like I can't remember anything specific from before the lockdown. Please, Brian, you need to trust me. My heart was wrenched. Never had his voice sounded as human as it did now. What if that really was Theo out there, and I had left him to fend for himself the past day and a half? The rule of not opening my door dwelled on me, but what if I actually had the chance to protect Theo? I don't know. Listen, the thing's going to come back any moment now, and I'm going to have to leave. Just please. I know it's scary. Tears pooled up in my eyes. As much as I wanted to open the door, I had to maximize my chances. I'm sorry, Theo. I can't. Silence again. I expected the Theo thing to start repeating its lines again, but there was nothing. And then finally, a faint, almost inaudible, all right. Ever since then, I haven't heard from Theo, but I know that he will likely be back and try to get me to open the door again. If it actually was Theo outside, part of me doesn't want to know, because the pain of the guilt would be too much to bear. At the time this is being sent, it is currently November 16th, 2022, 7:19 CST. I will likely have 3 more days. If you're reading this before then, there may still be a chance. Please, do what you can to end the periodic lockdown at Brynhorn College. The letter from my son's school was chilling, but not as chilling as the basement. Dear Mr. Timkins, and I'm writing to you because I think it's important that we discuss Billy's recent behavior in class. I have tried contacting you over the phone on several occasions, but have been unsuccessful in getting through. I would appreciate it if you could get in touch with me to arrange a meeting at your earliest convenience. Let me start off by saying that Billy is a very bright young man. He's truly gifted across the board. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the boy has one of the most impressive scientific minds I've seen in years, especially when it comes to chemistry and biology. He may only be 11, but he has more knowledge in these areas than plenty of adults I know. Whatever work you've been doing with him outside the classroom, it's clearly paid off in that respect. I'm also conscious that the circumstances at home have not been easy for any of you recently. I'm aware that Billy's grandfather passed away a few months back. It must be a very difficult time, so please do accept my sincere condolences, and know that I wouldn't be contacting you if I didn't deem the matter an urgent one. As long as I've known him, Billy has kept to himself. He's always been one of those children who are just as happy, if not happier, in their own company. Eating by himself at lunchtime, playing on his own, he's always struck me as something of a shy boy. And he has never struck me, up until the past few weeks, as a violent one. But recently there have been causes for concern. 3 incidents, in particular, that I wanted to address with you. We can discuss these in more detail when you come in, but I've outlined them below so you understand the seriousness of the situation. The first incident took place a couple of weeks ago. Billy had a falling out with another boy in the playground. I don't know what the disagreement was about, and neither boy will tell me. But another little girl was playing nearby, and she tells me she heard your son say to the other young man, "If you don't back off, my granddad will get you. He knows how to do magic. He can make you disappear." Those exact words. Now, I'm aware that these are very difficult circumstances. Billy is almost certainly still grieving for his grandfather, and I know grief can often present itself in unusual ways. But despite this, I cannot completely excuse Billy. I'm told the other boy was quite distressed, and we cannot tolerate threatening language like that in our school. Since a second incident took place last week, I was having a chat with Billy after class because he wanted to talk through his maths homework with me, make sure he understood it. As you can probably imagine, this isn't a common occurrence with the children in my class, so I was more than happy to help. But as he was reaching into his rucksack to get his textbook, a tin fell out. Not the pencil case he always has on his desk, but a plain red tin I hadn't seen before. When it fell out of his rucksack, it landed on the ground and broke open. There were insects inside it, dead, dismembered insects, flies with their wings removed, a chopped up worm, a spider with half its legs pulled off which still seemed to be alive and tried crawling away across the carpet. The only other thing in the tin besides the insects was a small pair of tweezers. Now, I want you to know Billy gave me an explanation for all this. He told me the bugs were part of an experiment. He said he'd been trying to teach himself about anatomy, so he'd been collecting some insects to dissect. I asked him why the spider was still alive if that was the case, but he told me he thought it had been dead when he was operating on it. Said it must have gone into shock. If I'm honest, I'm not sure what to believe. As I'm sure you can appreciate, I found the whole thing rather disturbing, and it's even more troubling in light of the final matter I wanted to discuss with you. This last incident took place yesterday. It involved another little girl in Billy's class called Annabelle. Mrs. Herbert, our teaching assistant, was the one who found them. Billy and Annabelle were in a far corner of the school field during lunch, behind some bushes. Mrs. Herbert was patrolling the area, she told me, when she heard screams. She went to investigate, and when she walked around those bushes, she found Billy standing over the little girl. Annabelle had tears running down her face. Mrs. Herbert said she had her arms raised over her head, as if to defend herself, and in Billy's hand was a pair of silver tweezers, the same pair I'd seen fall out of his bag last week. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you here, Mr. Timkins. When Mrs. Herbert told me this, I wanted to suspend Billy on the spot. I wanted him gone. Our school has a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to bullying. But the problem is, Mrs. Herbert didn't actually see a son do anything to the girl, and both children insist that they were only playing. I spoke to them both separately, and they had the same exact story. They were playing at being doctors, and Billy was pretending to operate on Annabelle. When I asked her why she'd been crying if that was the case, she clammed up, wouldn't say anything else to me at all, and did notice that she had a red patch on the back of her head, however. A bald spot that had begun to scab over. If I had to guess, Mr. Timkins, I'd say your son was using those tweezers to pull the hairs out of her scalp. And the only other bit of information I have is something Mrs. Herbert told me, something the girl apparently said shortly after Mrs. Herbert found them both, something she let slip while she was still upset. And Mrs. Herbert was comforting her, telling the girl she could tell her anything she wanted, and Annabelle turned to her and said, I can't say anything bad about Billy, Mrs. Herbert, or he'll make it worse. His granddad's a ghost. He'll come through my window and get me while I'm sleeping. Again, that's a direct quote. Mrs. Herbert tried to get more out of her, but she wouldn't say anything else. Anyway, I apologize for the long letter, Mr. Timkins. I know the past few months can't have been easy. I'm also aware that the change in Billy's behavior is very likely linked to his recent bereavement, especially given what the other children have said about his grandfather. I'm sure you can see now why it's crucial that we speak as soon as possible. The school wants to support Billy as much as we can, but in the meantime, we simply cannot have him threatening or hurting other students. I do hope you'll contact me on the number below as soon as you receive this, so we can arrange an appointment and get to the bottom of the matter. Yours sincerely, Mr. Hartford, Pettivier 6 Vent. Just as I finished reading that letter, I heard the front door of the house snick shut. I glanced at my watch. Billy. It was Billy, home from school. The letter had left me feeling very anxious, so I decided to waste no time. I marched to the front of the house, planning to confront him straight away. Billy was unslinging his rucksack when I entered the hallway. He glanced up at me and I saw his eyes widen when he noticed the look on my face. I thrust the letter in front of him. "Oh, I just got this from your teacher, Mr. Hartford," I said. "I want you to read it, and then I want you to explain yourself." "Oh," Billy stared down at the letter. A lock of black hair from his fringe had fallen in front of his eyes, and he swept it aside with a shaking hand. The shaking only got worse as he read what his teacher had written. "Well?" I demanded a few minutes later. Billy looked at the ground, refusing to meet my eyes. He didn't say anything. "Right," I said. "Come with me." I took Billy's arm and led him through the house, chastising him as I went. "And the thing you need to understand, young man, is that when you act out at school, it doesn't just affect you." We were walking through the dining room now, en route to a little hallway at the back of the house. And it risks affecting our entire family. We entered the hallway and paused beside a closed door. I stared at Billy, who was looking up at me with frightened eyes. "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?" Despite the fear in his face, Billy met my gaze. I'm sorry, Dad," he spluttered. "I'm really sorry. I saw that his eyes had started glistening with tears. In that moment, he didn't look violent or capable of hurting anyone. He looked like a little boy. And just like that, I knew I couldn't be angry with him. Tensing my whole body, I pulled open the door we were standing beside, the door to the basement. All at once, the hallway was filled with the sound of high-pitched screams. The noise made me feel ill. I found myself reflecting almost absently. What an efficient job the builders did with the soundproofing down there. Really thorough. I told them at the time Billy would be using the room to practice his drumming. Said we didn't want any noise whatsoever to escape. They obviously listened. "Oh look, Billy," I said. "I know how much you miss your granddad, and you know what a special man he was, don't you?" Billy nodded. "And you know that the special instructions he left for us have to be followed very carefully, right?" Billy nodded again. "I know, Dad," he said. "That's why I've been doing my best to practice. 'Cause I want to help." He stared up at me with a bright-eyed excitement. It did nothing to help the nausea in my stomach. Billy's only a kid. He's only young. Involving him in all this was the last thing I ever wanted to do. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes the alternatives are worse. The old man was very clear in the instructions he left behind. If the whole family isn't in on it, it won't work. And if the whole family doesn't try and make it work, he'll know. Oh yes, he always knows. The first time I went down to the basement, I left Billy behind. Thought it wouldn't matter. But that night, Canteen came to me while I slept. Visited me. I dreamed I was trapped in bed with my arms pinned at my sides and he was looming over me, watching. He didn't say anything, just pointed a finger at the photo of Billy on my beside table. The message was clear enough. If you don't do exactly what I ask, it won't be you that suffers, it'll be your son. Now I reached down and ruffled Billy's hair with a trembling hand. In the basement below us, the screams grew louder. "I know you only want to help," I whispered. "I know you want to see your grandpa again. But part of helping is making sure we keep what we're doing here a secret too. Do you understand that?" Billy looked down at the floor and nodded for a third time, shoulders slumped. Right then, I didn't know what was worse, the fact that I had no choice but to involve him, or the fact he seemed to want to be involved. The fact that sometimes, when he looked at me in a certain light, I saw traces of his granddad in him. "I'll tell you what," I said after a moment. "If you promise me you'll start behaving in school, I'll let you choose the best parts on this one. How does that sound? You're still a bit too little to help with the operation, but that doesn't mean you can't be useful." Billy stared up at me with wide eyes. "Really, Dad? You sure?" I nodded at him, forced myself to smile, felt the nausea in my stomach roll and churn. Billy's a good kid. I know, he's a good kid. All I really want to do is protect him. I spent the last 11 years of my life trying to do just that, and 3 months ago I thought I'd succeeded. 3 months ago, when his grandpa had a heart attack, I thought the nightmare was finally over. But then I found the instructions he'd left behind for us. I started seeing him in my nightmares, and I realized it wasn't really over, after all. Now I watched as Billy ran over to the top of the basement steps. He paused and grinned back at me. "Well, know 2 kids in my class who lost their granddads as well," he said suddenly. "And they're both sad because they'll never get to see them again. But I'm not sad, Dad. I'm lucky. We both are—" He turned and ran down the steps. I followed after him. Shut the door firmly behind us. The screams were louder than ever now, and Billy's next words, which echoed back to me up the staircase, were almost lost in the noise. "Only a couple more bits and pieces to go now," he shouted, "and I'll have a brand new granddad." I gave a college interview. Something was really off about the girl I interviewed. I'm an alumni interviewer for my alma mater. This year we've been conducting most of our interviews online. It's been a lot of fun. Until I got Casey. On paper, Casey looked like a great fit for our college. Great ACT scores, lots of extracurriculars, and some prestigious art awards. But as soon as she joined the video call, I knew it wasn't going to go well. She was using one of those awful beauty filters. During an interview, and not a basic one with lipstick and eyeshadow. One of those creepy subtle ones that makes your eyes slightly bigger and your skin unnaturally smooth. I tried to ignore it. Tried to pretend like she didn't look like some mannequin-esque woman come to life. "So Casey, why do you think you would be a good fit for C University?" I asked, forcing a smile. "I love the art program," she said. As she spoke, the filter seemed to glitch. Her mouth moved strangely as she formed the words. Must be that teeth-whitening filter. Her teeth were white, like glowing, like Ross from that one episode of Friends white. "Okay, you love the art program. What about it do you like?" "I love the program's focus on real-life models." "Okay." At least she was prepared. Researching our specific program meant she was pretty interested. I jotted down a note. "Seems interested." "What type of art do you specialize in?" "I like to paint." "You like to paint? What specifically? Portraits or landscapes? Faces?" "Oh, so portraits. No, I like to paint faces." She said it in this aggressive tone, like she was correcting me, and annoyed that I'd made such an egregious error. I almost asked, "What's the difference?" But then decided it might make me look stupid. "Okay, that's really neat," I jotted down. Likes to paint faces, not portraits, faces. Why do you like to paint faces? I think they're fascinating, she replied, her two large eyes boring into mine. Okay, that's good. Kind of a strange personality, I added to my notes. Tell me, Casey, what do you like to do in your spare time? For me, this was the perfect barometer of a candidate. Lots of smart-ass kids would try to outsmart me on this one, and say things like learn or read books or try to cure cancer. Others were totally oblivious and answered things like partying with friends or Instagram. The really good ones were in the middle, the ones that said things like hiking or playing piano or visiting grandma. She stared at me for a moment, the light in her eyes strangely elliptical from the filters stretching them out. Then her mouth opened, lips moving strangely over her two white teeth. I like to paint faces, but what else do you like to do in your free time? She paused, her face blank, almost like she was confused by the question. Do you maybe like to hike or hang out with friends or... Faces are just so fascinating to me, she interrupted, her tone soft, the way the nose protrudes from the cheeks, the way the eyes glisten in the light. The way the mouth stretches and curves, showing so many different expressions, she continued, her tone growing faster, frenzied almost. The emptiness of the forehead, the intensity of the eyelashes, the curve of the chin, I held up a hand. Yes, I understand you like to paint faces, but can you, I trailed off. This girl was really weird. Half of me just wanted to click the end call button right now, with no explanation. But I had a duty, right? A duty to fairly interview this girl and write up a letter about her to the admissions committee. Here, how about this? If you had the next 24 hours off and unlimited money, what would you do? She smiled, lips stretching to show off those bright white teeth. I'd paint a face, she said, smiling wider by the second. Yours. Chills crept down my body. What? I'd paint your face, she continued. I've been looking for a new one. And yes, the brightness of your blue eyes, the curl in your hair, the soft lines around your eyes that show wisdom. It's perfect. Perfect. I clicked end call, and then I sat there, half terrified and half perplexed, staring at my desktop. My fingers still on the touchpad, ice cold. Because in that split second before the call ended, the filter glitched. Smooth, perfect flesh gave way to something gray and bony. Blue eyes flashed sickly yellow. White teeth jittered to pointed fangs. Casey, it seemed, was quite good at painting human faces. I hid in a closet during a school lockdown and heard what really happened. The truth is much worse than what they told us. I'm very happy I'm not in school anymore. I graduated a few years ago, but more and more every day I hear about incidents at school. On the news, on the internet, on texts, my friends send me all sorts of horror stories. But the stories online are the ones I'm always finding myself glancing through. I've seen stories online of people relating how their school went into lockdown, and the story ends up being about some hobo who had been living under the school, or some crazy person from down the street who finally snapped one day. I don't know if they're true, but all I know is our school went into lockdown once, and I don't know if even the people at my school know the whole story as to what happened. I don't even know if I understand it myself. It still seems like a sort of fever dream, something that didn't happen. It couldn't happen. It was the middle of third period, math. I had just finished a big test. I found out later I had made a bunch of mistakes and ended up getting a D, but that's not really important to the story. I used the hall pass to go use the bathroom. Unfortunately, the school bathrooms were all located at the stairwells, and of course, the bathrooms on the first floor, where I was, were closed for repairs. I had to go up to the second floor, but before I got there, the bell rang. The bell never rang during class before, but as it did, an announcement came over the PA. Students and faculty, we are entering lockdown. This is not a drill. Please, all students and faculty follow all school procedures. I froze. I could hear sirens approaching. I came out of the stairwell, but already the doors in the hallway were closing, and I could hear them locking. I was alone and out in the open. I could go into the bathroom now, but the doors had no locks on them since my freshman year, after some juniors trapped a freshman in the bathroom and duct taped him inside a stall. They removed the ability to lock them at all. If there was somebody wandering the school, I'd have no chance if I went into there. I ran down the hall. I could see classrooms turning out their lights and covering the windows. I couldn't turn to them for help. All the instructions said to not answer the door. I had to find someplace safe nearby before something happened. I turned a corner, and I saw my chance. The janitor's closet was open. Lunch was up next period, so he was probably out setting up tables when the announcement was made. He wasn't in there, and it could easily be locked from the inside, so I jumped in and shut off the light. The only light I saw was from the bottom of the door. I waited, and the sirens grew closer and eventually stopped. Time passed. and I wasn't sure if I was happy that I couldn't hear anything going on or tense because I had no idea what was happening. Then I heard footsteps, lots of them. They stopped in the hallway. It must have been police. I could hear radios and other assorted noises. I didn't think it could be some sort of lone gunman or nutcase, so I listened. One guy in particular sounded like the one in charge. "Okay, are we in position?" Another guy answered. I didn't know what his rank was, but clearly he was not in charge of the first guy. "Yes, sir. We know the suspect is here in the building. C team is across the campus as ordered, and B team is covering the back entrances. He will not exit the building on our watch." The chief responded, "Pun good. Remember, he could look like anyone, but he must not escape. It's my fault he's here, and it's my duty to deal with him." I couldn't hear much for a while. There was too much movement, too many people all talking to each other to make out anybody from where I sat. I just waited for a little while. Maybe it would all just be over soon, and I could leave the closet and go back to class. Then, that's when it all happened. The chief yelled out, "Hold it! Put your hands in the air!" The commotion outside stopped abruptly. A moment later, clothes rustled loudly as what sounded like a large number of guns were drawn. "Lay down on the ground. Leave your hands where we can see them." It stayed quiet, except for a few of the guns cocking. Anai said down the ground, "Don't you dare try what I think you're going to do. You're not at the institute anymore." I thought I would hear shots go off back and forth and eventually somebody saying "suspect down." What I didn't expect was the scream. It wasn't a normal scream. It wasn't somebody crying out in terror. It was like a wounded animal, mixed with the sound of a bandsaw hitting concrete. I've never heard anything like it before, and I hope I never hear it again. Then the guns began to fire. The horrible scream happened again, and then other screams, and then the sounds of tearing. I saw the shadows under the door as people moved and fell over, and heard the telltale splatter of gore as it soaked the floor. There was another gunshot, and I nearly yelled out myself when a bullet punched through part of the doorway. It wasn't very big, but I put my eye up against it, and I could see a group of people being attacked by somebody. But something wasn't right about him. He looked too long in places, like he'd been stretched in a taffy machine. He was moving so fast, though, that I couldn't make anything out, except for him grabbing people and throwing them around like they were nothing. There was blood everywhere. More gunshots. The scream happened again and again. I pulled away from the bullet hole and sat back in the closet. Then the scream began to fade. I heard a thud and then more footsteps. The chief spoke again, but he was breathing heavily like he had been badly wounded. "Team A, he's down. I repeat, he's down. We need a cleanup immediately." I didn't move. I wanted to look again, but as curious as I was, I didn't really want to see, but I heard a lot of commotion for a long time, and then nothing. I don't know how long it was after that, but then the PA announced the lockdown had ended. I came out of the closet. I tried not to look, but for all the sounds I had heard, there was not as much sign of a fight as I thought there would be. Even the blood I had seen in that brief time through the bullet hole had all been removed. I went back to my class and just told everyone I had hid in a stall in the bathroom. People were impressed with my guts for doing it. But if nobody else had heard that scream, I certainly didn't want to bring it up. As you might expect, we all went home early that day. Police and EMT were everywhere, but as far as I could see, nobody was being taken away by either. My parents came and were so happy that I was all right. They had been following everything on the news and came as soon as they could. At home that night, I ate dinner and waited to see what happened on the news. The live coverage had ended a long time ago, but when the news came back on at 10, I wanted to see everything. As it started, I saw classes had been canceled for the rest of the week, but then things started to get weird. The news talked about a student who they refused to name, how he had come to school armed but had been taken into custody after a short firefight. Stranger still, in the footage of the hallway where the scuffle had taken place, the door of the closest, which had been my refuge, was totally unscathed. Not so much as a scratch on it, let alone bullet holes. It appeared to have been replaced outright, well before any investigation could have been completed. I saw pictures of the student, being led away in cuffs. He didn't have a mark on him. He wasn't even wounded as he was pushed into a police car and driven away. All I saw was him fighting and yelling. Even in my glimpses through that bullet hole, I knew that wasn't the same one I saw. The clothes were completely different. The one I had seen had been wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. The one getting into the police car was wearing a white shirt and shorts. The news said no one had been hurt despite the gunfire. But I knew people had been wounded, even killed. I'd heard them screaming in agony as something vicious had attacked them. And then there was what that chief guy had said, talking about something being his fault. The institution. That Tahin Keen could look like anyone. I don't know what happened that day for certain. I didn't see enough. I didn't hear enough to get the full story. But this is what I can tell you. I know there was no shooter at our school. I know that someone was arrested that day. Someone who I didn't know, who I never heard about ever again. That's right, a duddy shooter, who never made another day's worth of news, just disappeared. When was the last time that ever happened? I know that chief guy and his squads were not cops. I don't know who they were, but I know cops don't clean up a crime scene like that, and no human being has ever screamed like that. Ever. But whatever it was that I heard attacking those people, all I know is it came into that hallway where I was. I was alone, and if it hadn't been for that janitor's closet, I wouldn't have been safe. It could have looked like anyone. Something tells me that squad wouldn't have helped me either. It could have looked like anyone. What was it? How long had it been in our school? Had I ever been alone with it and never knew what it was? Who were those people who had come for it? Where had it come from? And good God, is it really dead?